Okay, let's talk about Iran and Israel. This is a conflict that's usually fought in the shadows, right? We're talking drones, missiles, cyber attacks, but the tension is just simmering, and you get the feeling it could boil over at any second. So let's break down exactly what's going on and what might be coming next.
So, the direct shooting match back in June of 2025, it officially ended after just 12 days of really intense fighting. But the big question is, was that actually the end, or was it just a pause? It really seems like no one on either side believes the fighting is truly over.
So, to really get a grip on what might happen, here's what we're going to look at. We'll dive into the unfinished business from that 12-day war, see how both sides are gearing up for the next round, and then we'll explore something new, this internal front that's opened up right in the middle of the conflict.
Right, so let's start with the last war, because really, all it did was set the stage for the next one. You know, it was loud, it was violent, but when the dust settled, nothing was actually resolved.
This timeline really shows you just how quickly things went from 0 to 100 and then stopped. A surprise strike kicked it all off, leading to 12 days of missile barrages and air raids. But the second that US-brokered ceasefire was announced, both nations basically said, yeah, this isn't over. They saw it as just one round in a much bigger fight.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the matter. This wasn't some quiet assessment. This was Israel's top general making a public declaration literally moments after the fighting stopped. The ceasefire wasn't a move toward peace. It was just a pause to reload.
Now, let's switch over to Iran's strategy, because their big takeaway from the last war was crystal clear. Missiles. Missiles are everything.
Okay, so this is crucial to understand. Iran knows it can't go toe-to-toe with Israel's Air Force. It's just not going to happen. So their strategy is asymmetric. They don't need to control the sky, they just need two things: really good intel on a valuable target and one precise missile to hit it.
And they lean into this strategy hard. I mean, during that short 12-day war, Iran launched 574 ballistic missiles. That's more than a third of their entire estimated arsenal at the time. It just shows you how incredibly reliant they are on this one single weapon system.
So, because they use so many missiles and had their factories hit, Iran's production lines are reportedly working around the clock. And they're not just replacing what they lost. Oh no, they're aiming for something much bigger. The goal, reportedly, is to build a stockpile so huge they can launch 2,000 missiles in one massive, overwhelming wave.
All right, so how is Israel preparing for this threat? Well, they've got a two-pronged approach. They're trying to disrupt production while also using their powerful alliances.
And what's so interesting here is the stark contrast in strategies. You've got Iran playing a numbers game, missile saturation. The idea is to fire so many missiles that Israel's defenses just get overwhelmed. But Israel, they're focused on sabotage. They're trying to break the supply chain before the missiles are even built, targeting very specific, hard-to-replace equipment.
This chart really puts it all into perspective, money-wise. Israel's official defense budget is already almost 4 times bigger than Iran's. But then you add in the aid from the United States, nearly $34 billion over 2 years, and that financial gap becomes just massive.
But here's the catch. Money isn't everything. Israel has a critical vulnerability. Think of it like a ticking clock that starts the moment a war begins. Their air defense systems are incredible, but they run on a limited number of interceptor missiles. In an all-out war, they could run out in just 10 to 12 days without a massive, immediate resupply from the US. And that's why that ceasefire was so important to them.
But this whole conflict isn't just about missiles and money anymore. A new, unpredictable front has opened up, and this one is right inside Iran itself. This is a really stunning statement from Iran's top diplomat. He is directly linking the recent protests inside his country to the war with Israel. He's not treating it as a separate issue. He's framing it as a continuation of the war by other means. He's essentially calling it day 13 of a 12-day war.
So from Tehran's point of view, here's how it all went down. It starts with legitimate, peaceful protests about the economy, but then, they claim, armed agents, directed from outside the country, infiltrated the crowds to deliberately cause chaos, forcing the government to crack down and cut the internet to stop, in their words, foreign coordination.
So, with all these pieces moving on the board, the arms race, the strategic weaknesses, this new internal front, what are the key takeaways? What's pushing these two nations back towards the brink of an all-out war?
This table really sums it up. You've got all these pressure points building at the same time. Iran is rearming like there's no tomorrow. Israel feels like its main goals from the last war were never met. Then you've got Israel actively looking for a U.S. green light for a preemptive strike, while Iran sees its own internal problems as an act of war directed by its enemies.
And that leads us with a final, pretty sobering thought. Neither side thinks the last conflict is over. Both are actively getting ready for a round two that they believe will be far more decisive and far more destructive. So the question isn't really if they'll fight again. It's what the trigger will be and when it's going to be pulled.